You know, it feels so fresh to be in an ideal space where you can enjoy beautiful sceneries. But that's not the case for this week. We have a lot lined up for you in this special edition of the Ideal Space. Special in the sense we have introduced an interesting segment titled Converted Spaces, where we'll be giving you the before and after in a series of shows. My name is Tim Njiru. This week we explore how ideal spaces are for live, work and play. Karibu.
We got outdoors into what will be the ideal space for play at the heart of the Rift Valley. In our continuing three-part series of the Aberdare Golf Resort, we now turn our focus on the block factory that is now becoming the new trend in the world of design and architecture.
Yeah, we are looking at projects like Sun City, Fan Court, Obai in South Africa. We're taking our benchmark from projects in the Middle East and the Far East. We will be planting over the next 5 years 1 million indigenous trees, simply because we want to make sure wherever we're putting homes, there's going to be lots of fauna around. We don't want to be pure landscape grass. We want to leave as much to nature as possible.
Apart from the rich flora and fauna that this space has to offer, Rod Taylor says the park has set up a block factory that will seek to reduce the cost of construction materials within the park.
Manufacture our own building blocks here to a much higher standard than is available sort of on the high street from local suppliers. So we manufacture our own building blocks to, as I said, to a much higher standard. We import things like our conduit pipes from Turkey because they are better quality than we can find locally, and it gives the property a far more resilient feel to it when you're building with international stamped supply, equipment, etc.
The block factory will seek to reduce the cost of construction materials within the park.
Along with the other governmental offices or departments, we work closely with NEMA for all of our approvals. We conduct our annual audits through them using NEMA approved consultants to make sure that whatever we're doing conforms to the rules and regulations that they impose on us.
Next week we finish the series with the pearl in the necklace, delving into interiors in mind and why this will be the ideal holiday home for anyone looking for live, work and play element in their space. Moving indoors, and this week's fashion and design segment, we explore a new and an exciting paint technique and finish for the interior spaces. The Crown Metallica, as I pick from Shrinal Patel of Crown Paints, is one that is becoming popular with most Kenyans wishing to have something sophisticated and at a reasonable price.
This is the Crown Metallica, and it's an effect called the dapple effect. This effect is applied using butter paper, which is in its crinkled form. We use a roller over it to achieve the look that you see on this wall in the metallic blue.
So I've walked into your Muthithi Road showroom, and there you are. So many color codes, so many paints. What do I ask for?
Well, firstly, ideally you would ask for the Metallica catalogue. which has more than just this effect in the book. You could then choose the effect. The book has the color combinations. It's got entire over 300 choices of colors that you can choose of, which you can then combine to create any of the effects in Metallica. This would be a special paint because the base coat is also, it is a base coat from the Crown chart, though we have to make it with a little bit of a specialized because it is for Metallica. That is the undercoat, that is the purple that you see here, which is called the Purple Comet. On top of the Purple Comet, with this effect, we've used the Turkish tile. If you look at the Turkish tile in our actual Crown color chart without the Metallica shine, it's a greenish blue. But this is now a top coat for Metallica specifically, so it will have the shine to it, which then gives it this color. And when it is applied on the purple is when you achieve this sort of an effect. If you applied this same top coat on another undercoat, the total effect would be a slight variation in the shade that you see here. If you do have that creative side, you do have the creative hand, you can purchase just the materials for Metallica, which is the top coat and the base coat. Some effects have 2 base coats and 1 top coat. Some effects have 1 base coat with 2 top coats. Actually depends on the effect you totally choose. And then there's also a variation with tools and materials that you use per effect. For example, there's an effect we call combing, which requires a comb, sort of an equipment or tool, which has teeth-like structures, and you sort of brush it over, and that's where you get that combing. But for the dapple that we see here today, it's a butter paper, and we get it in sheets. So you could say, for instance, depending on the labor, depending on the skill and the artist that is doing this effect, is how much butter paper goes into use, the way you crinkle it and the way you apply it and roll on. This is basically an art of folding, you could say, or an art of crinkling a paper. So you'll have a bigger pattern here. You'll see as we move somewhere there, it gets very, very small and detailed. And then you move again and it gets slightly bigger again and slightly variation-wise. And that's what gives this effect. It gives you that sort of 3-tone, 4-tone sort of a look in terms of texture, and not basically color, but it's texture variation.
For the benefit of my viewer, what is butter paper? Can I get it in the supermarket?
You do get butter paper in the supermarket. It's basically like baking paper, but we order our papers from overseas, obviously for reasons where we've been working with this paper and we get the texture we want. We get some butter papers, depends on the weight. If they're too thin, they won't withstand the paint. And if they're too thick again, you won't get the crisp sort of cut-offs. So it's the weight of the paper matters a lot.
Okay, so you would not advise anyone to use, say, newspapers?
No, definitely not, because newspapers have a print on its own. If you notice, sometimes paints have certain chemicals, certain oils which react with newspapers in terms you don't want the print sort of printing off on your wall, especially if you're using lighter colors. And newspaper probably wouldn't give you the same effect, because once you crinkle a newspaper and it gets wet, it starts to tear, whereas the butter paper, it is a grease-proof paper. That's why it's used for baking, so it withstands all that sort of liquid texture. Feature walls are the focal point. They are a point which makes the room stand out. They are a point which is the focus basically of any room. With this space, the client decided to not stick with white, and we've gone with a more wheatish sort of a color for the majority of the walls. The fact that the tiling and the sofas are leather, and we're looking at a lot of shape and symmetry. So this effect is also been put in with shape. We've got rectangles of different sizes. So we've got rectangles on the side, which are going to be just in the flat base purple, and then we've got this effect which makes the room stand out with its blue shade, and the fact that it's got a tinge of light. It has different sort of shine with the natural light and different sort of shine at night, because we've got these down lights which sort of drop down on this effect, making it stand out, making it a feature on its own. Hi, welcome to my ideal space. Come on in. This is my ideal space, my bedroom, my world, and where I live basically most of the time when I'm not at work.
Why so many pillows?
I'm the kind of a person who likes to be surrounded by a lot of things. I decided to use pillows. Each pillow is from a different country that I've visited.
We've talked about feature walls in a couple of episodes on the ideal space. Now that is one of those feature walls?
Yes.
What's the story there?
That was a gift from one of my nieces when she went to China. So I decided that I wanted to put it up, wanted to show her that I appreciated her choice of what she got for me. Initially, when we did the house, I was still a student. So we did this bedroom 5 years ago. I decided to use more flat paint in terms of flat color because I knew I was going to sort of design the room with a lot of African artifacts, a lot of craft work from not only Africa but also from around the world, from where I've traveled to. Actually is a wallpaper. It's a paintable wallpaper, which I chose not to get painted, except for if you look very carefully in where the zigzags are, we've just put silver in there with a paint pen. Because if you're like me with lots and lots and lots of belongings, you know, I mean, you don't want the ceiling to be ignored if everything's plain. So instead of having this on my walls, I had it on my ceilings, because it gives me the ground space to display my sort of things. And then the ceiling, when I'm sleeping, you know, I'm looking up at something busy as well.
Any sort of mood that you get from flat colored paints? Because everyone on the show keeps asking me, okay, fine, I've got a flat colored paint. Can I create a sort of a mood in the space that I'm living in or even playing in?
Yes, because color affects you psychologically. For a lot of people, red would be a very aggravating color. It would be a very energizing color. They don't prefer to use it in bedrooms, but as a designer, I wanted to be more daring. The fact that the red sort of it brings me enclosed, and in different cultures, these colors represent different meaning and different value. I'm the kind of person who likes to be very personal with my work. I design a lot of my own things. For example, the stand with the belt, I've made it out of recycled bangles and rope. And then I've got a similar one there for scarves, which I've done the same thing for. It's easier because I'm a very girly girl and I have a lot of things.
That's a girly.
Yes.
Come from a flat paint, and then you have Mazeras on the other hand. Doesn't that contrast? Doesn't that say something different about your personality?
Yes, the whole point of a contrast is in design. You've got to learn to complement things. You've got to learn that yes, I could have ideally put a flat paint there, but then how am I getting that touch of Africa with paint only without color? This is a very natural stone that we find very readily available here, and I wanted to bring that into my room. I wanted to feel like it was that lodge sort of a thing, and it also, yes, it does reflect my personality to a certain level.
Wait, lodge?
Yes.
So your room, you turned it into a sort of like a lodge or a hotel room of sorts?
Yes. For me, every day would be nice to be a holiday, because I wanted to come to a space where I'm relaxed. When I go to a hotel room, I know I'm going for relaxation, I'm going for holiday. That's only been when I've been traveling with holidays and leisure. I've not traveled where it's hectic, stressful for work. So I wanted to feel that way every day when I come home. I wanted to feel that I'm unwinding at some retreat.
Something that's caught my eye is seeing that you're a Kenyan of Asian descent, is
Yes.
that you've got a collection of scarves, but how you've stored it is what picked my eye the most.
I feel very blessed in that sense, especially when people come and they say, oh, wow, you know, I want to do that and I want to do that. And similarly, I got a calabash for my necklaces because I love my jewelry, I love my accessories, and I need them all to be seen, visible, where they're easily accessible to me. I don't like stashing it away.
The question I'd like to ask would be, would this room be an ideal for a bachelor?
Well, to make it a bachelor's pad, obviously I would change my feature of the sticky feature that I've got with the butterflies and the lady.
Right.
I would still retain the Mazaras. Obviously get rid of where I've got my accessories. Some of them could still remain, like the belt stand could be used for ties. I would include a TV if I could on this wall right here. So I'd take the floating shelf off, put a flat screen mounted on there, and have a whole sort of bachelor pad sort of a thing going on where I'd have bean bags or, you know, lazy boy, PlayStation, typical man thing. Tips for the viewers is you don't have to have traveled the world, you don't have to have traveled the globe to accessorize your rooms. You could make do with what you have. You could be a collector of coins, you could be a collector of stamps. An idea is you could put all your stamps, you know, stick them on a ply, get it framed, and it could just frame your whole feature wall. You could have coins and you could incorporate them into the walls. You could have them stuck on and they would form a feature on its own, create a wave, a pattern, etc. Another thing that you could do, obviously, is use paints. Paints are a great way of using features. You could do blocking. This is what I have done in my room. I've blocked one section of the room with a fresh biscuit color, and the others are the sachet red. The good thing is that this red, it shows you how it can be used. When you look at it on an ambience card or a color card, you can't imagine a room in this color. But when you actually apply it, this is what it is. You can bring out the beauty of the room with the colors. The colors I used were obviously Crown colors, which are the best paints. And Mazaras wall, I have introduced it. Yes, it's not a paint, but again, it's a different material, it's a different feature, and I've used Crown varnish to gloss over the Mazaras. Thank you all for visiting my ideal space. I'd like to ask you, how ideal is your space?
Earlier on the program, I mentioned how roof windows play a major role in converting the attic into a livable space. Now, on our next feature, which is very special to me, is how one roof space moved from zero to hero.
This undisclosed location where the makeover is to happen is in one of Nairobi's high-end suburbs.
This is one of the greatest properties I've come across here in Nairobi. And we are looking at, we want to take a look all through to see how it looks like.
The owner of this spot was very particular and didn't want us to disclose for privacy purposes. Roof space, or the attic in most houses in Kenya, end up being storage spaces for water tanks.
Basically is the loft, or the ceiling space as we call it. And what we are doing here now, we want to show Kenyans that you don't have to waste all this space in the attic with the water tanks. Like you can see what has been done here. It's just water tanks and nothing else is here.
To give you a profile of what used to be here, this was once a student's restroom for the night, more or less like a dormitory, a space that took up very minimal architecture.
Looking at it right now, it's full of taka as we are demolishing.
We purposely filmed with no light at all, just to let you in on how dark and quiet life was in the beginning. We oftenly think that the person who lived here could have waited a little bit longer if he knew what was going to be the end product. Instead, he left little knowing what will be the ideal.
What do you think you can do with the attic space here?
Here, what we are looking at doing is removing all this in the framing. Then what we're going to do, we're going to install Facro windows. These are very nice windows that will bring in more light. Once we pumped in more light now, we can do the bedroom around here. This, we want to make it a bedroom. And one of the reasons why we're deciding on this side, one of the reasons why we are deciding to make this a bedroom side is because it has a great view.
The next couple of weeks will be a renovation that will blow your mind. We got to speak with some of the top designers and suppliers of furniture and furnishings into this venture, and they agreed.
We're going to do a lot of insulation so that we make sure we're able to regulate the temperatures up here. Then after that, we're going to seal it out with dry board. Then once that is done now, we're going to cut spaces in between the trusses. We're going to install the lovely Facro roof windows that will bring in now more light. And apart from bringing in more light, they're going to ventilate the space, because once you open them up, you're able to allow fresh air to flow in. That's the whole idea.
This is one project we are very pleased and sure to give you 100% transformation. And that is what we promise to do when it ends.
What becomes of that roof space is beyond my imagination, and we will come to learn that later in the series. We wind up the show for now. The question begs, how ideal is your space? I'm Tim Njiru signing off. See you next week. Bye for now.